I go hard in the motherfucking paint, nigga. Leave you stankin', nigga. What the fuck you thinking, nigga? I won't die for this shit. What the fuck I said? Front yard, broad day with the S. See Gucci, that's my motherfucking nigga. I hang in the jail with them hit squad killers. Walk a block of flame on the hood ass nigga. Riding real slow, big bonus spot, nigga. Got a main bitch, got a mistress, a couple of girlfriends. I'm fucking rich. Keep my dick hard and keep me smoking. You get bills free, shouting no joke.
What's going on, everyone? Scotty White, World Combat Sports. Thanks everybody for tuning in. You know what it is. It's that time. World Combat Sports News, boxing, MMA, and of course, you know what it is, man. It's about UFC 249. Postponement. For those of you that haven't heard, I did a live stream just the other day, and basically we was talking about this card, the only last remaining full contact fight card that was on the schedule for 18th April. That has since been postponed due to the powers that be, ESPN and Disney. They had to make some phone calls. And what did I tell you, people? I told you, when you start messing with loopholes in the system that's under different government, right? I'm talking about loopholes the blacks don't even get. When you start venturing over into native lands just for opportunity, a whole lot of people get pissed off. A whole lot of people saying, Even some of the individuals that was probably on the reservation, you had the ones that was nodding and others that was shaking. It was only a matter of time before Dana White faced the music and ran into somebody that he couldn't, negate. He couldn't just shut him down. And that just goes to show you, even Dana White being the president and the amount of money that the organization has, they couldn't get past this. You feel me? They couldn't get past it, y'all. He couldn't sit up there and say, you know what, I'm putting on this fight card regardless of what you're talking about. And I think some of that mitigation came into play when Thug Rose Namajunas, who I'm hearing allegedly, she dropped out because of family members that was either passed away from the pandemic or not. I'm not too sure. Don't quote me on that. But she was the second superstar to basically fall out of this fight card that was scheduled for next weekend. Now, that would have been Khabib Nurmagomedov and Rose Namajunas. Two big names. One, Khabib was on the main event and Rose was on the co-main event. It was a big freaking deal, y'all. It was huge because in order for you to perform a card like that in a blackout like we got right now, you needed all the heavy hitters. And they had some heavy hitters on there. You know what I'm saying? They had some people on that card. They had 11 under. They had 11 on the drop. And the main event wouldn't have disappointed. You had Justin Gaethje and Tony Ferguson. Real talk. The 11 heavy hitters that was on there would have did justice. Would have did justice, man. Uriah Hall, Jacare, they would have did justice. You know what I'm saying? Francis Ngannou and Rosenstruck would have did justice, people. But these people ain't playing. These people are not playing with venturing over into native reservation and thinking you're going to seize an opportunity just because you have money and you're going to benefit yourself. They said, hell no, it ain't popping like that, Dana. It ain't popping like that. Look, I know Dana White is sick because, look, this would have placed him in a whole different light if Dana White was able to pull this card off. It would have placed him in a whole nother light. His organization, himself, Everything would have been perceived a little bit brighter if he was able to pull this card off during the pandemic. Because right now, people are eager to see something. You know, the combat sports fans, they're eager to see something that pertains to the sport. So if he would have been able to successfully light camera action and make sure this hits the airwaves, and it did pretty decent numbers, it would have been quite legendary. I'm not going to lie to you. Josh Talks UFC. What's good, man? He said, I wants to cry. This is sad. He said the only positive is that Dana thanked the Indians and said when things get better, he'll hold the event there for them, for helping him. Respect to Dana and the Indians for trying. And he said the Fight Island will be up and running by next month. That's another positive. Well, and appreciate that input, man. Shout out to you. You know, the caveat to what you just said, he was in a rush to get that arena built and ready for next week. So the arena internally, Octagon and everything else would have been good to go. That would have met the timeline because it doesn't take much. You know, we're in the week prior. They definitely would have been on board and set up for the equipment and everything, the structure. What would have taken a little bit longer is all the medical requirements. You know what I'm saying? All the procedures and safety precautions that would have been mandatory. Just making sure all the fighters head into the native reservation, that they was cleared. Everybody on that card. You're talking about 11 undercards. That's a total of 24, including the main event. You know what I'm saying? That's a lot of people. That's a lot of contractors that they have to be in charge of. Not to mention the staff and everybody else that has to be cleared also to be on deck. So from what I'm hearing, ESPN and Disney, man, has some influence on Dana White shutting this all down, postponing it, so to speak. Like you just said, Josh, you know, him thanking the Indians, he have no choice but to thank the Indians. But when you start venturing over to native lands, look, a lot of people truly don't understand how they're governed. You know, the rules that they don't have to abide by. You know, the governor, Newsom, that's over there in Cali, right? He might have gave an order to stay in place for California. That doesn't mean it was applicable to the natives. It wasn't. On the reservation, it wasn't applicable for them. They could just about do what the heck they want, man. So just like I said the other day, I was kind of, you know, optimistic about, you know, is this going to be able to fly? Because a lot of people are going to frown upon it at Dana White just being, you know, he's just being too egotistical. He's trying to use his power, even though he just couldn't walk up on the reservation and say, this is what's going to happen. Not that. I'm talking about him refusing to capitulate during this pandemic. He didn't want to. Josh said, he said the fight. Okay. I think we'll get the fights by the end of May. Let's hope this island works out. This year has been so bad. Hope you and your family stay safe. Hey, same to you, man. Salute, for real. You know, hopefully everybody on your side is good. Of course, we wanna give a shout out to everybody that's tuned in. You know, everybody's going through this pandemic together. Hope you stay safe and survive it. You know what? I really don't want to jump off topic so early, but they said the stimulus checks is supposed to be coming out, you know, next week. I really hope they do for the people that truly needs it. I know some people out there struggling right now. You feel me? So genuinely, I really hope, you know, these checks come out and it's not just a carrot that was dangled to keep procrastinating, prolong the delay. And then we in the middle of May and nothing. Nobody's received any stimulus checks to help out during these times. Look, you got millions in unemployment. Back to the UFC, man. I'm not totally shocked, 100%. All right. I'm not even, I would say 40% shocked that the card was stopped, that the card was postponed. The reason being, it's such a tough time for, you know, Dana White to even consider crossing those parameters over into reservation. That was my only concern. Like everything else was shut down, but it was a loophole. And I commend Dana White for going in there and trying to exploit it. Real talk. I commend him for doing his research and pushing forward and being motivated to put on this card to entertain the club. You're going to have your naysayers is going to say, you know what, he should have shut the shit down to begin with. He was being too selfish. He was thinking about, I don't entirely agree with that. In order for you to be a leader, you have to take risk in tough situations. You have to know how to fight through adversity. That's just life. That's just the way anybody who ever been in a leadership position, period. You have to take risk. And Dana White, being who he is, been in the game as long as he was taking a risk. He was saying, you know what, this would be the opportune time to take it to another level and entertain the people with no competitors. Look, no competitors, y'all. No freaking competitors. If he would have pulled this shit off during a time like this, you would have had some people to say, you know what? What we got in the change jar? What we got? Man, UFC 249 is on. There ain't shit else on TV. Let's tune into it. You got a pretty decent main event, co-main event, and then you have 10 other cards up under the co-main event. That's pretty decent. Let's go. Let's pay for it. And I think he would have did all right numbers. I know yesterday, Josh, you was talking about 500,000. I don't think it would have did 500, but it would have did, decent numbers in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? He said, I feel bad for Rose. Did you hear the news about why she pulled out? Yeah, it was, I guess it was some family, people that she knew that died from the COVID, the virus. Yeah, that's what I heard too, man. I mentioned it earlier that it was some people that she knew, I believe, that passed from the COVID-19, the coronavirus. So listen, I said this before about Rose. Rose, she will make those type of decisions. You know what I'm saying? I don't blame her for that. I place no ill will a culpability on the fact that she made the wrong decision. I really don't. I really don't. That's Rose, though. Rose is one of those fighters that she has a toughness about her in the cage, real talk. But outside, she might be just a little bit more fragile to play around with this pandemic and go over there and compete on a card like that. That's just who she is. Like, she's tough, man. No doubt about it. If you look at the lead up between her and Joanna Jędrzejczyk, when she was saying a prayer, and it was almost like Joanna was the devil, and she was just talking and talking and talking. And Thug Rose was like she was expressionless. She was stoic. She was just looking in the eyes of Joanna. And they asked her, hey Rose Namajunas, what were you saying up there? And she was like, I was saying a prayer. She changed the life of Joanna Jędrzejczyk. So I don't think she's extremely a cracked eggshell. You know what I'm saying? But you really can't push the boiling point with her too much because she seemed like one of them individuals outside the cage that she ain't willing to take no risk that includes harming herself or her family. You know what I'm saying? But, she's still one of my favorite female champions. Period. Regardless, she don't have the belt or not. She's one of my favorite female champions. Real talk. Salute to Thug Rose Namajunas for real. Awesome name. Shit. And she'll go down in history for shutting down one of the next biggest superstars that has not been able to get back on track, period. I mean, you're talking about Joanna Jędrzejczyk. She was on her fifth defense. You know what I'm saying? She was at the door. And Thug Rose shut that shit down. And Joanna hadn't even came close to grabbing that title again and going on another run. She hadn't even came close, man. Josh said people should be happy with that. what they have in the world, because if you told someone last year that all this would happen, they wouldn't believe you. This is just crazy. I agree, man. Truly. I agree. Only because in February and a little bit after that, Showtime put on their last card, which was a blackout. Then the UFC put on that blackout card in Brazil. So that was it. After that, things started getting very, very bad. And, it went downhill from there, man. The slope was steep and people have suffered with their life. Seriously, it's tough, man. And I really can't put a finger on, one minute they're trying to say certain individuals, certain ethnicities are the ones who died, certain age groups and all that. But then again, you have people from all age groups are basically going into the hospital, seeking medical attention, being infected by this virus. So that was bullshit. So you can't sit up here and believe what you hear all the time. And I seen a video where I think it was in Philly. I'm not sure where it was, man, but they was in the cut, some officers, right? And they act like they was coughing because the resident there, was black residents, was talking shit. I mean, they didn't start talking shit till the officer coughed. So the officer coughed and they was like, that shit don't affect us. We black. Black people don't get that shit. And I'm like, man, that's the hood life, baby. Man, if it was a lie, you ain't never told, you just told one then, because black people don't have nothing to do with anything when it comes to this. I'm pretty sure statistics are not gonna give us an overall consensus. You know what I'm saying? We're not gonna have adequate, numbers as to who died per ethnicity. The breakdown on the spreadsheet is not going to give us those type of numbers. But it was just funny to hear her say, we ain't worried about that shit. Black people don't get the pandemic. I'm like, I don't know about that, man. It sounds good and all. It's hilarious. It's a bit humorous, but I'm pretty sure there's plenty of blacks out there that's sitting in the hospital, because I've seen the videos and it's people out there that's dying. I talked to a friend of mine that's in Jersey. I was in there with Bernard Hopkins, used to be Bernard Hopkins' training partner. He fought some good guys, right? And I was asking him, and also he's an officer over there. So I was asking him about the situations going on over there. And this is how strict it is over there in NYC. Is you have to practice social distancing, right? If you are inside of 6 feet, they fine you. They walk up and they will fine you and cite you a ticket of $500, period. Easy, right? If you go into a restaurant and you don't have the mask on, if you don't have the mask and I guess gloves, these protective gloves, you don't have to get served. They will not serve you. That's how bad it is over there. They ain't playing around. If you break curfew, you're getting locked up, period. So it's real bad over there, man. I asked him about the alleged bodies that's being placed in the back of the big rigs. He said he didn't know nothing about that, because I wanted to, find out. I say, tell me this. Why do you think it's such an outbreak over there in NYC? And we know why. Anybody who's been over there for fights, leisure vacation, reside over there, know that NYC, the foot traffic is crazy. The foot traffic over there is crazy, y'all. It's so much that goes on an everyday basis into the night. The streets are never empty. They're never silent. You know what I'm saying? So you take all the foot traffic, you take the activity, you take the presence, you take the rails. You know what I'm saying? You take the rails, you take the stations, and you factor in everything that's been recorded over time that we know about that's dirty or whatever the case may be over there. Somehow, some way, man, that was cultivated a bit higher than everybody else when it came to this virus. Seriously. The entry points, we'll never know. We never know why NYC is suffering. You know, we know it's constant foot traffic over there from the early mornings to the night, to the late nights. But the amount of casualties that they have, victims to the COVID-19, is unbelievable. Josh say Rose has been through a lot inside and outside the octagon. She is traumatized about the bus situation with Conor. I don't blame her. Yeah, real talk. And people just sweep that under the rug. The man threw a metal dolly at the truck. I mean, at the bus, breaking the window. A metal dolly, y'all. Look, I'm just saying. I don't like to compare, you know, certain individuals to situations. But not only did he throw the dolly at the bus with fighters, his compeers on there, Dana White even put it in the promo leading up to the fight between him and Khabib. That just goes to show you, the lack of sensitivity when it came to that. Like, there's some civil suits. I heard Rose Namajunas was one of the ones that was slightly injured, and she received a payout civilly for that particular incident. But you know, she's a fragile individual, man. And I know if it would have been anybody else that would have threw that dolly besides Conor McGregor at that time leading up to that fight, it would have been extreme punishment. If it would have been Khabib that threw the dolly and Conor McGregor was on the bus, Khabib probably would have faced suspension, even though Dana White said that Conor McGregor was handled outside and he was punished in the civil courts. I mean, in the criminal courts outside of the UFC. So why punish him on the inside? I believe it would have been Khabib. He would have been punished both sides of the spectrum. Seriously. Just like they fined him damn near close to $1 million for the brawl that broke out after the fight. You know what I'm saying? When Khabib threw his mouthpiece, Dylan Dennis was over there. Shouldn't have been running his goddamn mouth, but you know it's combat sports. Teams talk shit. And he was over at Bellator. He was the jiu-jitsu coach for Conor McGregor. And right after Khabib had subbed him out in the 4th round, he scales the cage and jumps out there to get at Dylan Dennis. And they end up fining Conor McGregor $50,000, and they fined Khabib like over $500,000. That was some crazy shit. Be happy with the small things in life. Let's come through this together. Everyone's safe. Let's hope we get the sport back this year. Tough times for everyone. That's real talk. In February, I thought this was nothing to worry about. Now look at this stuff. Is scary. It is, man. It's very intensive. Seriously, it's very intensive. A lot of people are not speaking on it because they're just sick and tired of hearing it. I get it, man. I understand why a lot of people are feeling the way they are. It's the people that's cooped up with family. Just say for instance, you don't have no kids. You in there, it's just you. I mean, even friction is gonna come between you and whoever you with. You know, you got your girl up in there, and even you and her is gonna at some point in time, unless she's entirely supportive and she's very creative, you know what I'm saying? She's very spontaneous. It's gonna get bad. It's gonna get bad. I know people down here are trying to go to parks and shit like that, and they breaking that shit up. And then think about the ones who kids, majority of the meals that they were receiving was at school. You know what I'm saying? Think about the people who was barely affording daycare. Barely affording daycare, because daycare is goddamn expensive. To now, they have to make other arrangements. They have to make other arrangements because the daycare their kid was in has closed. It's no longer open. So what's plan B and C? You got to find a way for your children to be safe in this time and be kept. Man, it's turmoil. I mean, look, no matter how you look at it, it is just chaos behind walls of certain individuals that had plans set up, that they was living in nets. You know what I'm saying? They was barely holding on by threads. And they had to have their kids at home with them right now. Some of them lost their job. Some of them are just praying each and every day to whatever supreme being they have faith in. And they're going through it, man. Because I'm going to be honest with you. This day and time, the millennials, I'm not saying everybody, but when it comes down to them actually giving a damn, they say, you know what? Let's help out mom or dad, together, mom, dad. Let's help out dad or mom, whatever the situation arrangement is, right? They will not sit up there and say, you know what? We need to really cool down on just going in there eating stuff because we're going through a bad time right now. If there's no older brothers and sisters in the house and you pretty much have some kids that's close together that really can't control their appetite and they eating up, and by the time you turn around 3 days later, you have to go back out to the grocery store, that's cutting into your freaking budget. I pray for them, man. Real talk. That's just tough, man. But Josh, what you said about February, no one that really was putting too much emphasis into the depth for which we are now, of course, because we just had that big MGM fight. We was like, okay, what's next? And then all of a sudden the walls came crumbling, man. You know what I'm saying? And Humpty Dumpty, he was up under that motherfucker. Seriously. The walls came crumbling down, man. And they came crumbling down hard. It's just bad all the way around with this pandemic. And until the numbers level out and decrease and remain there, this shit ain't lifting. We have another potential fight card I want to talk about that's supposed to go down in May. Now, it's April 9th right now. So between now and the first or second week of May, there has to be an extensive change. There has to be an extreme change in the numbers, and the governors and mayors getting together and lifting some of these bans, especially the gatherings, because you have a pretty nice fight that's on the surface right now with Henry Cejudo and Dominique Cruz. Now, you're probably saying to yourself, MMA fans, you're probably saying to yourself, like, okay, Henry Cejudo, former champ, flyweight, bantamweight, right? I went over this before. They tried to bring TJ Dillashaw down there to cancel out the whole division because Dana White wanted to goddamn put it in the closet and let that shit just mold because it wasn't really anybody watching, the division down in the 125-pound division. DJ Gone, arguably the best 125-pounder ever in the UFC. All right. So Dominique Cruz, we know him from injury, being injury prone, coming back and winning the title. Did y'all see the fight? Did y'all see the fight? Dominique Cruz, he has skin in the game, man. When I say Dominique Cruz has skin in the game, man, they like that dude. I like Dominique Cruz for his knowledge. I like him for his rare skill set that he has as a striker. No one in the UFC has Dominique Cruz skill set. No one. Period. Even with Uriah Faber subbing out Dominique Cruz in WEC. Dominique Cruz, in my opinion, has did more coming over here to the UFC, transferring over than most fighters have that transferred over from that particular neighboring organization. And I like it. I like him as a UFC fighter because of his knowledge. Not everything people agree with him. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people's like, But to see him return, I believe after 2 years, and pick up the strap and put the shock on everybody. And while he was standing up there, his legs were shaking and everything. I know he's in extreme pain. The dude was probably in so much pain. And then they asked him like, what's up with your leg? Is your knee okay? He took some time off and he was able to come back, and he ended up losing his title. You know what I'm saying? Cody Garbrandt had one of the brightest nights. He had one of the brightest nights of his career, because just when I thought that Dominique Cruz's footwork would be enough to outwork Cody Garbrandt, Cody's head movement, his hands, being that he was a former boxer, his uncle taught him boxing. I mean, he just looked amazing that night. Like the way he was landing punches on DC, I was like, shit. He was dancing around. He was feeling himself in the fight. He was in the rhythm, the groove, whatever you want to call it, man. Cody Garbrandt had one of the brightest halos of his career. So now, next month, him and Cejudo is scheduled as a last-minute replacement because Jose Aldo pulled out. Now we have, once again, a fighter that, been out the sport since, over 3 years, I believe? DC's been out the sport. He comes back and passes everybody in the freaking line, y'all. Look, DC passed everybody in the line. I'm not talking about Daniel Cormier because I got to talk to the casuals. The casuals said, what the hell are you talking about? DC's in the heavyweight. I remember talking on a freaking group, and I'm saying DC just to shorten it up. And man, what are you talking about? You don't know MMA. DC's in the heavyweight division. I'm saying Dominique Cruz. All right, come on. And matter of fact, go to freaking timeout. Anyway, Dominique Cruz has to rub a lot of fighters the wrong way and get special privileges. If I was a fighter, right, and I'm like saying to myself, like, I'm up next. Funk Master. You know what I'm saying? Aljamain Sterling. Him of all people. Should he feel some type of way? He should have feel some type of way, right? But let me read something that he placed out there while I'm on the topic. Because the reason why I say Aljamain Sterling, like he rebounded from his knockout of Marlon Moraes, right? Switch kick, left side switch kick, right? Knocked him out cold. He kind of took it for granted with his distance and everything. Kind of, was showboating a little bit, got knocked out stiff. I mentioned it already. But he rebounded. He went in there and looked good against Pedro Munoz, right? This what Aljamain Sterling had to say in quote. He said, do you think the UFC is going to owe you a favor when you step up on short notice when nobody else is doing it? There's a reason a whole bunch of us aren't doing it. If you want to be the scapegoat and think that the UFC is going to owe you one, good luck with that. Let me know how that goes, as history has shown. I don't think the UFC is in the business of doing favors for other people. They're in the business of doing the UFC. And it's a lot of that, which is 100% true with Aljamain. And of course, he's talking about stepping up for the fight that was just canceled. And I know Funk Master is like, cool. You know what I'm saying? All these people that was trying to step up and be on this infamous card are now, they have to sit in place. No paycheck. And I feel bad for the fighters, yo. You dig? Hey, I feel bad for these fighters because they're in a tough sport. And when the lights are on, they have to go in there to battle and cross the line of departure and put their physical structure, the entire anatomy, their mind, brain, everything on the line. They have to go in there and fight. And depending on how tough it is, it bleeds over into the recovery process. Even if they recover and come back, it's years, it's months off their life, years off their life, right? So during this time, like the boxers too, they're not receiving a stipend. They pretty much out here waiting and waiting and waiting. And according to the lifestyle, hopefully some of these fighters have put their money aside. They have second jobs. They haven't shut down due to COVID-19. It is absolutely, utterly tough to think about. Seriously, it's tough. I'm not gonna lie. But here in DC, move to the front of the line. I'm saying to myself, do DC deserve the title shot with Henry Cejudo? Is he the one that deserves the title shot? Is somebody else that have basically been active? Of course. Of course, there's others out there that's been active. People, let's keep it all the way real, man. I'm nearly 17, and the only thing I do right now is take my dog out. I hate people. Y'all say I hate people my age right now thinking this is all a joke and not taking this serious. Man, you're 17 years old. Salute to you, bro. That's the age I went into the core, man. You young in the game. You got your whole life ahead of you, bro. So when I'm in the dirt, man, you'll still be on this ground. You know, you'll still be out here. You get to see from this time, 20 years, 30 years from now, how the sport has evolved. You know, it will be totally different. You know, it will be so many different rule changes 25 years from now. You know, it'll be a whole different group of guys. And look, I just look at, you know, hearing your age, right? I just look at the what you experiencing now and the old heads that's in the game. Give or take 15, 20 years from now, what the changing of the guard would be like. Some of these popular names that's in the UFC right now, they'll be out. Done. They will be sitting in the stand. They'll be coming as guest appearance. And you'll be like, I remember when they used to compete. I remember when so-and-so was champion. I remember when this fight took place. That's how it's going to be, man. The changing of guard. John Jones will be gone. DC will be gone. Stipe. Demetrius Johnson will be gone. Jose Aldo. They'll be gone. Uriah Favorite definitely be gone. Cowboy Cerrone, done. You know what I'm saying? Out. As much as I don't want to mention the welterweight division, you know, Kamaru Usman, Tyrone Woodley, Stephen Thompson, all them dudes will be gone. Jorge Masvidal, out. Ben Askren, he's on retired period anyway. You know what I'm saying? Alistair Overeem. All these familiar names will be gone. Amanda Nunes, Valentina Shevchenko, gone. Gone. It'll be a new guard. I would love to see DC in the bantamweight division. Hell no. Nah. I mean, that's asking extremely too much in the worst conditions. Hey, look, seeing DC, who struggled to make 205, compete at the 135, bro. It would be painful. This dude would die just making the weight cut. You know what I'm saying? We can't put no fantasy out here as if, well, if DC started at lightweight, we would like to see him. We don't know if he'll move the same if he started at lightweight 155 and he was able to drop down to 135. You know what I'm saying? We don't know. If DC was a lighter weight, would he move the way he do? Because his strongest division is heavyweight. Would he be able to operate? Would his versatility excel the way it was? With his wrestling, with his hands, all of that? Would he be that guy? You know, we look at Anthony Rumble Johnson when he used to fight at the lighter weights. Apart from, you know, separate that to his transition up and how he looks now and having that power, you know. But seeing DC, even if by chance, hypothetically, he was at 155, for him to drop down 2 weight classes, it would be interesting. But that's a tough sell, man. Hey, anything in the pandemic, right? You know, any freaking what ifs or, you know, scenarios is good for talking points in the pandemic, right? Dominic Cruz would consider more than a legend if he came back and beat Cejudo for the title. It could be, hold on for a second. Hey, I hit you back. I hit you right back. Dominic Cruz would be considered more of a legend if he came back and beat Cejudo for the title. It could be more legendary than GSP comeback. I will link up with that. The reason why I link up with what you're saying more than GSP, because GSP left at a time that it wasn't because of injury. GSP just absquatulated and then went into retreat because he was trying to say, well, they need to do more testing. Certain guys aren't clean. He was insinuating a reason why he left the sport, right? DC has been active with the commentary. So he's still been an intricate part in the UFC, in MMA in general, right? And considered one of the best bantamweight champions ever. For him to be out as long as he have and come back and beat a guy who's a triple C, a man who was the only Olympic gold to come over here and win a title, not just in one weight division, but in two, it would be legendary. Absolutely. It would be legendary, especially if he came over here and stopped Henry Cejudo. If Dominic Cruz came back to the cage and stopped Henry Cejudo after so much, over 3 years off? Let me gauge this, man. Let me gauge the freaking coordinates on this. Seriously. Usually I know, but I just want to kind of make sure, kind of give the correct content if I'm talking on it. Hey, those of you that's tuning in to the channel, hey, can you hit that thumbs up button? Josh and everybody else, primarily Josh, appreciate the input, man, as always. So Dominic Cruz, of course, he only has 2 losses, which says a lot. But on the flip side, for those of you that have been following the sport, knows he has had hiatuses in between his career, right? So 22-2, right? His last time in the cage was against Cody Garbrandt in 2016. I repeat, 2016. He lost that decision to Cody Garbrandt. Check this out. Check this out, though. So he fought Scott Jorgensen in 2010, and he was out almost just outside of a year. You know, came back, fought Uriah Faber. Then he defeated Demetrius Johnson. Of course, this was that bantamweight. Then he fought Mizugaki, which he closed out Mizugaki in 1 round, which that was still a shocker to everyone who knows how good Mizugaki was. And check this out. This was like from 2011, he didn't fight again to 2014. His last fight was Demetrius Johnson in October of 2011. He won the UD. And then he came back in 2014. After Mizugaki, right? He came back after what? A year and a half off? Something like that. And that's when he faced TJ Dillashaw. He won a split decision. And he defeated Uriah Faber with the get back. And then he hasn't fought since then. And that was 2016. Now let's look at this. Let's look at this right quick. Because I know there are some fighters who saying, damn, you know, what about me? You know what I'm saying? What about me? That's all I want. What about me? So Um, Imagine a mini Daniel Cormier at bantamweight. I can't, bruh. I can't. I can't imagine someone who I've always known, even when he was in Strikeforce, to be that pudgy type of soft-looking fighter who was just vicious and a freak of nature. DC, Daniel Cormier is a legend. His body type and what he's been through, man, he was undefeated heading into the UFC. He was undefeated. John Jones gave him his first loss at light heavyweight. He was freaking undefeated and a dog, man. He just met a guy who was his alpha in John Jones. Real talk. So look at the bantamweight division. Marlon Moraes, we all know what happened with Marlon Moraes. Okay? The only reason he's still number one is because he's the last one to step in there with Henry Cejudo, and he lost. He was stopped. But then Marlon Moraes is the same one who finished Aljamain Sterling. So the one that sits in third, and you know, Sterling was able to come back and have some solid wins. You know, he had his fight with Munoz, and I believe he had his fight with I forgot the other guy's name, but he had a pretty solid performance against Munoz. But then you get Peter Yan, and he's up and coming, solid fighter. I'm curious to know how Sterling would do against Yan. I'm curious to see that. But everybody else, you know, outside of Jose Aldo, who just moved down to the division and ranked number 6. He's ranked number 6, y'all. We're talking about a featherweight moving down to bantamweight. You look at everybody else that's in the lineup. This is gonna blow your mind a little bit. Dominic Cruz, he wasn't even ranked in the top 15 because he was inactive. So he surpassed everybody. Rafael Assunção was due to face Cody Garbrandt, and that fight was canceled. You know what I'm saying? He was due to face Cody Garbrandt in March. That fight was canceled. I was looking forward to seeing that. So, you know, Dominic Cruz jumped the line and gets a title shot with him and Cejudo over Aljamain Sterling. Peter Yan, I wouldn't say he deserves to get a title shot right this minute. And then up-and-comer Corey Sandhagen. But that's about it, y'all. You can't give it to Pedro Munoz because he lost to Sterling, like I said. Jimmy Rivera has lost to Moraes. So them two both was beat. Sterling is the only one that was able to get back. If you look at Jimmy Rivera, I think he lost twice following that. He lost to Moraes and he lost to somebody else. But that's what it is, y'all. GSP hasn't had the same injuries as Cruz. And when GSP was out, I'm sure he was training every day. And I respect Michael Bisping a lot, but Cejudo is a harder opponent, and Cruz, if he beat him. Yeah, you know, I'm not saying GSP was injured when he left that Johnny Hendricks fight. I know his ego took a big hit. You know what I'm saying? But they gave him the win. I don't know why so many people jump on here and say, well, that's not for you to say that GSP really won the fight. Did you see how he looked? Johnny, and though I don't like Johnny, you know, fighting style, I think he's an extremely boring fighter. He's a lay and pray type of dude. He tried the same shit with Robbie Lawler. I just don't like him. Anyway, I mean, as a fighter. But anyway, GSP leaving the sport, want to talk about they need to increase or enhance, you know, drug testing and all that bullshit. I agree with you in saying that he didn't have injuries or he didn't have the same type of injuries. I don't think he really had injuries except to his heart, you know, and confidence, the way he was handled. For him to come back and face Michael Bisping, who had one eye, what do you think that was going to happen? Man, give it up to Michael Bisping, man. Mad respect to the dude. Michael Bisping is one of those dudes that'll fight in the alley. He talked the shit. He don't care. Look, anybody who can come back from a Hindu H-bomb the way he did, oh my God. Y'all just don't understand. He talks so much shit. And Dan Henderson ended up catching him with the overhand right. Not only that, Michael Bisping is Ambien. He's Ambien, y'all. I'm talking about 10 Ambiens with some vodka. He's out cold. And Hindu takes flight. One of the most legendary freaking finishers that you would ever see. Hindu takes flight and land a freaking elbow on Michael Bisping, who's already asleep for 10 days already. And he crushes him with an elbow just for good measure. It's like, you know what? Don't ever underestimate Team Quest again. I am the one. I am the one that came over here with belts already. Don't underestimate me. But look, the reason why I respect Michael Bisping is because he rebounded and he talked that shit, man. And he can fight. Seriously, he'll tell you cut and dry. He's outspoken. And he'll tell you what he thinks. It don't necessarily have to be right. But dude, I have mad respect for Michael Bisping. Real talk. Mad respect for him, man. Grosso's in the building, man. Salute to you. But I agree, Josh. I agree with that, man. You know, it's harder opponent. And Cruz, if he beats Cejudo, bro, man, the Cruz is another one. Dominic Cruz has his ego too. But he has to come in here for 5 rounds. And he's the one who's already mentioned in time. There's no such thing as ring rust. Dominic has made it perfectly clear. There's no such thing as ring rust. You just have to keep active and work it off. You know what I'm saying? So I would like to see him come in here for 5 rounds and put on a good performance. I would be shocked, being there's a lot of people that respect his ground game. I would be shocked if somebody like Henry Cejudo subbed him out. Look, I would be shocked if Henry Cejudo stopped him. Seriously. I would be shocked. I would be shocked that he was able to pull that off, because what's the threat besides his takedowns for somebody who has pretty decent wrestling in Dominic Cruz? What's the threat from Henry Cejudo? Because you can say, well, I'm going to go for the kick. I'm going to throw some kicks because he's injury prone and his knees are not that well. Well, go ahead. I mean, Dominic Cruz is tough, man. That's a tough guy. Is he going to be able to get in close? You know, because him and Moraes was going back and forth before he switched up the game plan and started going to that bread basket. You know what I'm saying? But Dominic Cruz is no Marlon Moraes. Let's get that straight. Let's get that straight. Grosso's in the building. What's good, man? He said, peace, fam. You think UFC going through a PR nightmare right now? Can you imagine if this event was UFC 248 with Wiley Zhang on the co-main and the event gets canceled? Every racist would have blamed her. Would have blamed Wiley Zhang. So I'm guessing if Wiley Zhang would have pulled out like Thug Rose, that's what I'm assuming that you mean. If Wiley Zhang would have pulled out like Thug Rose, it would have been some people. But during this time with everybody pointing the finger as if the COVID, the coronavirus originated from China. Hey man, they talking about they putting a ban on that shit. I'm not gonna get in that right now, but it came from it started. You know what I'm saying? It didn't start over here. They had a huge amount of freaking cases over there in China. All of a sudden, they don't have no new signs of COVID-19. Of course, if it was active, yeah, they would have goddamn blasted Wiley Zhang, because she was the first Chinese champion in the UFC, man. Yeah, they would have went at it. But shout out, man. Thanks for dropping in. Josh said, Jan versus Moraes was the fight getting booked. I think for June. I think Young would beat him. And if he beats him, he definitely deserves the title shot. The bantamweight division is stacked. The bantamweight division is stacked all the way down to number 10. I wouldn't really say outside, given the last 5, that rounds out the 15. Because Cody Garbrandt is number 9 right now. And dependent on him changing up his fighting style, you know what I'm saying? He should know by now. He just can't go in there and swing all wild. And you know, we can say that shit, TJ Dillashaw wasn't clean doing those fights. We can kind of make that assumption. Was TJ Dillashaw clean doing the Cody Garbrandt fight? Was he? It's a big argument. It's a big argument, y'all. Was TJ Dillashaw clean doing those fights? And unfortunately for Cody Garbrandt, he really don't have enough evidence for them to even do any research. You know, we're not even at that type of technology right now. You know, it's no picograms that's steadily filtering out that flagged TJ Dillashaw when he was fighting Cody Garbrandt like John Jones. It's nothing. Let's say Robert Whittaker or Yoel Romero was champ at the time. I don't think GSP would have took that fight. If we are being honest, he took Bisping because he was the easiest fight of them. Yeah, it was a great time. The gateway was an opportune time. I agree. Because they know, period, what Michael Bisping, they knew, man. His fighting style, everything about Michael Bisping didn't match up well with GSP. He was fighting with one eye, first and foremost. He was fighting with one freaking eye, y'all. GSP and his team picked the opportune time, and Dana White gave him the ticket. He took it, and he was able to come in there and win another belt at that division. Kudos to GSP. But you know what? It's a lot of people that's not relating to him because they just can't. They can't get the vibe from GSP. Like when he was actually in the cage, and he would come up there and say, "I'm not impressed with your performance." You know, people's like, "Oh, yeah, GSP, he talking that shit robotically, and he's going in there and getting it done." Now he's been out the sport, still, you know, active, in shape. He left the sport, come back. He don't have a lot of fans that gravitate to him, man. He don't have that fan base. Unless you're a hardcore fan, you'll know GSP. Unless you're a hardcore, you know what I'm saying? I love Michael Bisping. The guy's a legend of the sport, and I'm British as well, so I have to love him. Yeah, you know, Michael Bisping is one of those guys that has a history, as you probably already know, Josh, of being a street fighter, taking no shit and going out there in some very tough situations and fighting, throwing down. Seriously. And that is legit. Absolutely legit, man. Stephen Wood, what's good? What's good? Stephen Wood, I didn't see him come in. He asked me my top 5 UFC fighters of all time. It's tough to say all time, Stephen, and I'm not trying to beat around the bush. It's tough for me to say all time because the sport has changed so much. So if I was to take the older fighters like the Dan Severns, Don Fry, Ken Shamrock, Horace Gracie, you know, even Tank Abbott, who you mentioned, the pit fighter, Tank Abbott back in the day, who had his success as being a very tough individual, but he was limited. Even though he had a little bit of wrestling, he was just limited. He was worse than DC when it came down to it. But the sport has evolved so much, like from the Gary Goodrich, you know, the Rampage Jackson and everybody who was over in Japan. I mean, the sport has just came a long freaking way from the Chuck Liddell's, man. Chuck Liddell, you rarely seen him try to go for a submission. He was just knocking motherfuckers out. That's a good topic, man. I can go on and on about UFC fighters of all time. That's tough, man, because it's hard for me to lock on to a fighter that's back then with what the skills I see today. It's tough for me to say, well, Horace Gracie, since he won UFC, I can't give you Horace Gracie because him and his family was in charge of UFC 1. Even though it was father the catchweight, and they did some amazing things in that fight card. They had a gi, they had trained a gi, and no other fighter that was on that card knew how to work against the submission. But the Gracies did. Does that make them somewhat an anomaly to the fight game? Yes, because they're legendary in bringing that BJJ to the mainstream of the UFC. A lot of people think they started jiu-jitsu, which is untrue. You know, they was trained by a Japanese professor, and then they brought it and put their own little spin over it, and it's BJJ, and now they introduced to the world when Horace Gracie went in there and was fighting guys 100 pounds heavier than he was. Man, don't let me get that candlelight started. Josh say everyone is looking to blame everyone right now. We all angry. This event in every sport is canceled. Let's just survive these tough times and get through this together. I agree, bro. You know, at least you have a support system around you. 17 years old, you're probably home with your parents, man. So at least you have that support system, that blanket, and you're not out here having to pay bills and a mortgage. Man, shit is tough. You know, real tough, dude. You know what I'm saying? Shit. Stephen Wood asks a very good question. I'm going back and forth for YouTube and Facebook, right? Solid question. Stephen Woods asks, could DC beat Dan Severn? Could he beat Dan Severn? And Dan Severn was a beast. You know how many fights Dan Severn had? Oh my God, yo. Come on. Dan Severn was a beast, man. I wish Dan Severn could have been fighting today. I'm just curious as to how much he would have progressed as a fighter because he was a big guy. So I'm just curious, like when you compare the Brock Lesnar's who really came over here with that wrestling pedigree, big, strong fighter. You know what I'm saying? Like even him, he got subbed out by Frank Mir, but I'm just saying, how would Dan Severn would have fared against DC? I'm going to be honest. I think DC would have beat the brakes off Dan Severn. Once again, we talking about Dan Severn, who wasn't really highly polished yet as an overall mixed martial artist. You know what I'm saying? You know, you take the Ken Shamrocks, you take some of those moments that Dan Severn had, and he had some problems with some fighters. So you take DC with his hands and his wrestling ability, DC would have beat the brakes off Dan Severn. Seriously. DC has some underrated hands and he can wrestle. Even though John Jones took him down, still, he has respectable wrestling. Period. I mean, if you don't remember how he got down, did a crotch lift on Dan Henderson, man. He just tossed Dan Henderson around the cage like he was a little kid in a daycare. I'm going to think about that, Stephen. I'm going to think about that. It's tough for me to say all time because what I'm seeing right now in mixed martial arts is 10 times better than what I saw when they was doing the catch weights and they was being regulated. They started to become regulated. They start to basically, you know, establish divisions. It's just everything began to be organized. So them going through the process the way they did, man, the evolution of mixed martial arts has changed leaps and bounds to what it is now. Seriously. You had some good characters. You had some solid characters back there that I appreciated. Seriously. I mean, we had some solid characters, man. The Don Fries, man, the Tank Abbotts. Man, who didn't want to see Tank Abbott come to the damn ring? Who else, man? Who else was a character? I don't want to choose anybody big. But anyway, let me get back to the comments. You always hear stuff on the internet, articles saying GSP is coming back to fight Khabib. And I think that would be a horrible decision. He had a great career, but don't ruin it and come back. Josh, the one thing I would say about that is GSP isn't undefeated. If GSP was undefeated and he was basically protecting that then I can say, okay, cool, don't come back and face a threat like Khabib, who really can match you in wrestling. Really, I think Khabib is much faster than GSP in a lot of ways. You know what I'm saying? Because he's not active or whatever. The one good point I think GSP would have on Khabib is his range and his combinations and his kicks. That's what failed Conor. Conor has a bad habit of placing a measuring stick out there with the right hand and trying to come with the left. That's just like people complaining about Deontay Wilder has just the right hand. Conor McGregor, in so many ways, he uses his left hand a lot, and he has a wide stance. He's athletic as hell, but sometimes Conor McGregor just puts the measuring stick out there too much in order to land that left hand. And when he finally lands it, Khabib is up underneath him already. You know what I'm saying? Khabib is already inside. The entry has been made, hands locked, and now they're scrambling. So with GSP facing Khabib and the respect for GSP's wrestling, it would be a good fight, yo. I mean, seriously, it would be a good damn fight. It would not be easy. I'm looking at the shorter Matt Serra, what he was able to do. And granted, I'm talking about the first fight. And you know, I don't think Serra was in tip-top condition when GSP returned and just gave him freaking death by 1,000 knees to the body, right? It would be interesting to see Khabib get GSP down. And I'm curious to see if Khabib can make it back to his feet in a good short amount of time. I'm just curious because I just don't see GSP holding Khabib down. I don't know, man. It's just a lot that you see with Khabib in his top pressure, and I'm curious to see how GSP will handle him scooping his legs up, you know, climbing up, using that extreme top pressure that he has, transitioning, landing punches from the top position. GSP, man, he ain't, in a lot of ways, he's not built to just handle that in a way, man. He's much more mature now. I get it. But running into Khabib, if you look back on Khabib's first shot on Conor McGregor, he didn't set that shit up. He shot in on Conor McGregor, and he was damn near, 4 or 5 feet out. And before Conor McGregor knew it, Khabib was already locked in. And the first scramble was awesome. I was like, oh shit, Conor McGregor, he defending quite well, you know. He locked in the ankle. He was trying to stabilize Khabib from turning him and getting put on his back. And, you know, once they stood up, they did, maybe about 5 rotations. Conor McGregor was spinning around trying to defend the takedown. But it's the entry that was amazing. Khabib's entry speed was amazing. And for him to shoot in on GSP with that speed, y'all, I'm curious to know if GSP will be able to handle it. You know, we're not talking about Nick Diaz, y'all. We ain't talking about Nick Diaz at GSP. You know what I'm saying? We ain't talking about Matt Serra. We talking about Khabib. I mean, his entry speed is amazing. That would be a good fight, though. If GSP really want to come in here and establish himself as one of the most, unique superstars ever, legendary status. If he comes back and fights at 155 and defeats Khabib, he's on a whole nother planet. And you know the bad thing about it is that he came in here and swooped in and fought Michael Bisping Really, nobody's talking about that shit. Nobody's really. They say, "Oh, GSP, he came in here and fought Michael Bisping, who had one eye. He was on the backside of his career of retiring. One of the winningest fighters ever in the UFC. But if GSP comes in here and defeat a more relevant fighter in Khabib, it'll be a whole nother stratosphere he's on. Seriously, if he's able to go in here and I mean, you saw Dustin Poirier, right? Dustin had Khabib in a guillotine, right? I'm just saying, you compare Dustin's skill set to GSP, how would that work out? So just for instance, Khabib shoot in on GSP. Is it possible? Is it potentially a threat, a sub threat for Khabib to get closed out by GSP, who might just have a little bit more better ground game for Khabib? It's interesting, man. My top 3 fighters right now are Colby Covington, the Korean Zombie, and Zhang Weili. All right. All those are fairly fresh names at the level they're at right now. Not so much Korean Zombie, but Zhang Weili and Colby Covington. Colby Covington, one of his biggest fights was Kamaru Usman. Seriously. You know what I'm saying? If he would have fought Tyron Woodley, cool. But Korean Zombie, he's been around for a while. His name holds more value, than some of the others as far as notoriety. But of course, Zhang Weili being the champion. Even with her being the champion, she's on the female side of the house, and not a lot of people are sitting up here just praising her with adulation, say, "Oh, that's my favorite fighter, male or female. That's my favorite fighter." But yeah, respect, man. Okay, that's your top 3. If I had to pick a top 3 right now, with who's in the building, I would give you my top 3. I'm just tough on a lot of shit, man. My top 3, number 1. I know this is gonna be crazy, man. This is gonna be crazy. But my number 1 would be DC. Okay, Daniel Cormier. He would be my number 1. The reason why I'm not picking John Jones is simply because he's been out the sport several times, and the picograms and all that shit. But DC's never popped positive. But also the second check in the box I give DC is what he did in Strikeforce on his way over here to the UFC, fighting in light heavyweight, all because of Cain Velasquez, and then moving up. He's moving up now to heavyweight, and he was able to knock out Stipe Miocic in 1 round. Dude's a beast. Outside of John Jones, he's a beast. But John Jones has popped, for twice and all that. DC. My second fighter at this stage in the game is man, that's a tough one. I have to go with Valentina Shevchenko. I like her all-around ground game, her all-around striking game. And a lot of people are going to say, well, why are you not going with Amanda Nunes? I just like the history behind Valentina Shevchenko, her Muay Thai kickboxing, and how she comes in here and fight in the UFC. Looking at Amanda Nunes, the way she was beat by Jessica, who was it? Jessica I? I still look at that fight, even though she's improved for real, and she beat some big names, Holly Holmes, Chris Cyborg, and she beat Valentina Shevchenko twice. I just look at Valentina Shevchenko all around skill set. She's a beast. I have to put her at my number 2, man. And then, of course, you know, he could have been my number 2 or my number 3, but Demetrius Johnson. I know he's not in the UFC, but goddamn it, the man defended his title 11 times. I got to put him up there in my top 3. He can arguably be number 2, Demetrius Johnson. The only reason I wouldn't put him number 1 with his title defenses, because Dominic Cruz defeated him at bantamweight division, but he dominated the flyweight division. Well, I look at DC, is he was able to come in here and fight at a division all because he didn't want to, you know, face Cain Velasquez, his good friend, right? So he pretty much did what he had to do at light heavyweight until John Jones gave him the loss. But then you look at him finally moving up when Cain Velasquez got hurt and he wasn't coming back. And he went to Lucha Libre, you know, the wrestling. He moved up and fought Stipe Miocic. He knocked him out. He knocked him out off the clinch. That's my 3. DC, Valentina Shevchenko, and Demetrius Johnson. That's my top 3. Jose Aldo as well in the prime is one of my favorite. His kicks were incredible. I agree with that. I agree with Jose Aldo all around. He was a lethal striker. A lot of people really didn't gravitate to Jose Aldo because as long as he held the belt, man, he should be more popular to the mainstream fans. But unfortunately for him, he was on the front end of Conor McGregor's left hand that knocked him out in 13 seconds. So you calibrate everything he's did up to that point. And then people look at him like, now forget how long he had a title reign. We're going to compare him to the 13 seconds. That's what the casual MMA fans are doing. They're comparing Jose Aldo to Conor McGregor's 13 seconds and losing his belt at featherweight. Sir Ken, what's good? What's good? I see you. Josh said Conor really didn't use his kicks in that fight. He only focused to try to defend the takedowns. He didn't really throw a high kick or anything. That's true. And he was smart for doing that because Khabib was too quick. A takedown artist, a sambo practitioner like Khabib Nurmagomedov, which you want to be throwing kicks like you did against Cowboy Cerrone. No. Hell no. Before you know it, Khabib is in there and he's taking you for a flight. You don't want to goddamn, go for a flight with Khabib and throwing kicks. He go in for a single double. He's just too good at it. And once you get a hold of it, all the way down from the thigh to the ankle, he's in there. He's in there, man. Do you think Kevin Lee will take a couple of years outside the sport? He's still young, and I know a lot of people try hate on him, but he's really got the potential to be a top contender. Kevin Lee himself said he was going to be out the sport for a couple of years. He insinuated that. He implied that was the case. I really don't know what's going on with Kevin Lee, man. Coming off that damn highlight reel stoppage and then going in there against Charles Oliveira, man. I don't know what the fuck, man. He knows better than that to do that with Charles Oliveira. He knows not to go in for a double leg and rest your head on the hip. He knows that. Why would he do it? I don't know, man. But Oliveira gave him what he was looking for. Him being out the sport for a couple of years, fighters in the moment, they can say a lot of stuff, but that doesn't mean they're gonna own up and keep it that way. He's still talented, and I think we might see him back within 12 months. He's probably going to take some time off and reassess. We don't know if he has personal issues going on or whatever, man. But he is talented, and he does have the skill set to be champion someday. I just hope he get it together. Sir Ken say, World Combat Sports in chat. Salute. Smash the like button. Hey, salute, Sir Ken, man. Thanks for dropping in, bro. Josh said you can't really judge Jose Aldo off 13 seconds knockout. He was unbeaten for 10 years. I think the guy isn't a scrub, but that's the casual fan. Yeah. You know, Jose Aldo, he's attached to 13 seconds because a lot of MMA fans attach themselves to who's popular at the moment. You know, they was pushing Conor McGregor hard after the Chad Mendes was going back. Silver, then the Silver fight, Chad Mendes, you know, the road that he was on, stepping into the fight with Jose Aldo. He was on the road, man. He had bravado. He had everything. He psyched Jose Aldo. He broke Jose Aldo down. And like you said, Josh, he was a champion almost for a decade, bro. He was doing this shit. But him not speaking English, him not being such a brash superstar like Conor McGregor. Look, could you imagine if Conor McGregor reigned for as long as Jose Aldo did with his charisma? Could you imagine how much of a bigger superstar? Conor McGregor would be untouchable. Like if Conor McGregor ruled as long as he did as Jose Aldo, we're talking about, once again, him being on levels above where he at right now with the two divisions. If Conor McGregor did that, because for one, Jose Aldo wasn't that brash trash talk. He just went in there and got it done. And he had some lethal hands and his kicks. And he was lethal on the ground too. But the casual MMA fans, they're going to attach him, man, to Conor McGregor because they love Conor McGregor at the time. Every time Jose's names come up, they're not going to mention what you just did. They're not going to say he reigned for like a decade. They're going to say, oh, that's the guy Conor McGregor knocked out in 13 seconds, right? All right. I know Jose Aldo. He's the guy who got. That's not all his career. That doesn't sum up his career. But unfortunately for him, he's trying to come back and do something special. You know what I'm saying? He's trying to come back and do something special. Him moving down the bantamweight right now, how dried up he looked. Will he get his chance? Will he get his shot? Good point there, Josh. Good point, man. Kevin Lee is too aggressive in fights. He never thinks with his brain. What did he expect Charles Oliveira would do in even other fights? His striking seemed sloppy. Well, he was losing the battle on the feet, really. Like Charles Oliveira had him up against the cage, and he was having success on the feet with Kevin Lee. So it was a good move for Kevin Lee to try to take him down because Kevin Lee had better success on the ground. Even though he wasn't doing extreme amount of damage because Oliveira is that slick. Look, between him and Tony Ferguson, some of the best jiu-jitsu practitioners off their back. Real talk. I think I would give the edge to Oliveira if you're talking about some sub attempts. He's just absolutely an octopus when he's on his back. The amount of submissions he has fighters thinking about, before you know it, you locked in and you can't do shit about it. Kevin Lee was doing better on the ground. Even though he wasn't doing he wasn't administering a lot of punishment, he was better on the ground. But when they was on their feet, the desperate attempt for Kevin Lee was to do what? Take it back to his comfort zone. Shoot. Make sure he get in on the hips. Oliveira, being a jiu-jitsu master he is, how smart, intelligent, he allowed Kevin Lee to shoot in again. And we all know Kevin Lee knew that Oliveira had a damn solid guillotine. He looked at the film. Come on, bro. Come on, Josh. He looked at the film, bro. Kevin Lee seen that Oliveira was that dude. Charles is a Brazilian Tony Ferguson. That's fact. Future champ, probably. He's waiting on that shot, man. Oliveira's waiting on that shot. It's hard. It's hard, you know, when you're talking about jiu-jitsu versus jiu-jitsu, man. Ground game against ground game. Tony Ferg, Oliveira. I don't know, man. It's just something about Oliveira, man, and how consistent his point of contacts at all time. Man, Oliveira is just magical to watch, man, as far as getting an education when he's on the ground, especially off his back. I just have to give him the edge. Now, Tony Ferguson, his elbows and everything, the way he works off his back, he's comfortable too. But if I'm saying jiu-jitsu game, I have to give it to Oliveira, man. Beautiful work of art when he's on the ground. Beautiful. His striking game is sick too, but when he's on the ground, his point of contacts, whoa. Grosso say 22-year-old Edmund Shabazian, if I'm pronouncing that right, finished his last 3 fights in the first. Boy is looking like a bolt of lightning. You think the UFC will fast track him to the title shot versus Izzy? How would Edmund hang versus Izzy? You have to, you know, to be honest, I haven't really looked into him. I think I've seen that guy fight once. And I have to look at his opponents. As a matter of fact, you know, that's what this time is for, man. So let me just go over here right quick. Let me go over here right quick and put his name in the slot. Do an inquiry, and let's see what we looking at. I need to see to assess who he's fought to finish in those first rounds. I have to see. So he's the golden boy. 11-0. Unblemished. Yeah, I've seen this cat fight. Yeah. He reminds me of a Lance Parker that's won the tournament over in the PFL twice already. So let me take a look at his opponents. Okay, Brad Tavares, right? He finished in round 1. Automatically, I think Brad Tavares, who went the distance with Israel Adesanya, right? So this dude finished him. Stylistically, they matched up well. Adesanya, when he fought Tavares, was playing it safe. That's real talk. I mean, Izzy has begun to bend his style. He's become the style bender for real in his last couple of fights with Gastelum and Robert Whittaker. So he finished Tavares, which Izzy went the distance with. And the rest of opponents is no need to mention. Jack Marshman, Charles Byrd, Darren Stewart. I don't need to mention. His main opponent is Brad Tavares. I wouldn't fast track him right now. He had 2 canceled bouts against Derek Brunson. You know, he's supposed to fight Derek Brunson this month. Let me see what he does against Derek Brunson, because stylistically, Derek Brunson matches up well with him. You know, chin up in the air, brawling type style. We'll see if he get knocked out again. You know what I'm saying? So if he knocks out Derek Brunson again, who's been knocked out several times before, he has to face 2 other solid names in the top 5. He has to. He has to face 2 other solid names. And let's look at where the middleweight at, right? Brad Tavares right now is 11th. He ranked 11th. So he finished him in round 1. So he's ranked number 9. So Derek Brunson supposed to have been the 11th of April. They supposed to have stepped in. So just give or take, he knocks out Derek Brunson. I have to see him against Kevin Gastelum. I have to see him against one of these guys, even Darren Till. You know what I'm saying? I have to see him against a big name before he even get anywhere close to smelling sauce of Izzy. You know what I'm saying? I don't even have to go up there against Cannonier or Romero. He has Gastelum right here, Hermanson, Polish off those two, especially gassing them, then I might start taking a little peek at it. But right now, you know, you got Teal in the hunt. You know, you got Yoel Romero. You got Cannonier that's holding on. That's a good question, man. That's a good question, Grosso. You know, I seen him fight once though, but no title shot anytime soon. Hell no. I don't care if you go in there and finish Brunson in the first round. I'm like, we expected that shit. That's what Brunson gives you. An open bag of groceries with a wet bottom, and time you hit it, shit's just going everywhere. That's what you get from Brunson, dog. Dude, just straightforward. That's what you get. Josh said one fighter who I think was overhyped in the UFC is Zabit. I think Zabit, but his cardio is questionable. But man, I think he needs a 5-round main event before he decides on him. I kind of agree with you on Zabit. Also, you know, another overhyped fighter that got exposed was Volkan Ozdemir. You know, he was exposed too. He was on the rise, and they thought he was going to do good. And then the biggest one of them all, y'all, Johnny Walker. When Johnny Walker was coming up, I said, no, dude. Johnny Walker is overrated. And then he got exposed. Johnny Walker got exposed. He got exposed. Of all people, Corey Anderson beat the brakes off of him. And then he just lost again and freaking dominating. He lost. He got dominated. Josh say Zabit versus Yair. Korean Zombie versus Brian Ortega. That's the fight to make in the featherweight division. Okay, let's break that shit down. Zabit versus Yair. Right now, Yair is looking pretty damn good. I would like to see that fight. That's a solid matchup. I'd like to see that. I had to go with Yair, man. But that's a solid matchup, man. Zombie versus Ortega, I have to go with Zombie. I'm still trying to feel Ortega out, man. You know, how he's going to come back with his hands. We know his jiu-jitsu game is good, but when you got somebody with good takedown defense and good striking, Max Holloway, a lot of people saying Max Holloway jiu-jitsu doesn't equal up to Brian Ortega. But Max beat the brakes off. He beat the brakes off of him. So I'm looking to see is Ortega, outside of him slapping random guys who's trying to get a name and management, I'm trying to see if Brian Ortega's hands have improved in there against a fighter like Korean Zombie. Korean Zombie, in my opinion, potentially has the promise to knock Ortega out. Seriously, he does. Max Holloway versus Volkanovski 2. You know, Volkanovski said he wasn't really looking for that fight. He said it was too easy. He said Max Holloway really don't deserve an immediate rematch. I believe that's what his words was. But would I cancel it out from seeing it again? Nah, I want to see it. I'm a Max Bless Holloway fan. I like Max. Seriously. He proved that he wasn't just how you put it. He was just hanging around just for GP when he stepped in there with a bigger Dustin Poirier, and he gave Dustin some problems periodically. But he was just too small to be fighting at lightweight. So being that he was able to do what he was able to do at featherweight, that shows you how the sport is evolving. You know, he had the concussion, and he was looking all weird that time. It may be other underlying issues with Max Holloway, but I like Max Holloway and his fighting style. It's just the sport is evolving, and man, you really have to be on your game this day and time. The training is vicious. You know, I sit in on these in some of these MMA schools. I don't put it out here online, but I go to get myself educated. I attend some of these BJJ tournaments, even on the amateur level, so I can continue to improve and know what I'm looking at. That's why, having conversations in a live like this, where I got Grosso, Josh and all that, talking this mixed martial arts, people say, oh, he's not a boxing channel. And I'll tell you, you're right. I'm not a boxing channel and I'm not a mixed martial arts channel. But when you get input like this, it's tough not to just sit up here and entertain the dialogue, because it's some good shit. It's some good questions, man. Solid ass questions, What's going on, Perky? Salute. Thanks for dropping in, man. That was a good question, Grosso. For real. Yeah, it's counsel, man. And it was bound to happen. When you try to take advantage of the native land because of a loophole, believe it or not, man, them native Indians, man, they have a lot of pull. They get a lot of leeway. They govern under different rules. Josh say Johnny Walker, that guy has fell off the cliff. His last fight looked gassed out in the first round. I agree, man. Krylov, I think that was his name. He looked very impressive. Very, very impressive. The UFC was canceled because of influences, from what I understand. ESPN did and was like, nah, Dana, it's good for you to cancel that. And I think Rose has some influence on that too. Rose dropped out and people start hitting Dana up like, hey, man, you need to cancel this. You need to cancel it, man. It's a bad omen. When you start messing with the natives, it gets real ominous. It's certain. I mean, I'm telling you, bro, like, if it would have been all clear right now and we wouldn't be in the pandemic and he wanted to hold that on that reservation, cool. But when you go into them as a last resort and they're not used to that, and you're trying to prove to people that there's loopholes in the system statewide, regionally, but internal to that, reservations don't follow the same rules, people get pissed. People get upset. Josh say Brian Ortega got exposed big time. I think the guy's scared to fight again after what Max did to him, instead of slapping random guys. Step in the octagon and fight the Korean zombie. I agree, man. I agree partially. I don't think Brian Ortega is scared to fight. I think with him, he's really just trying to get his personal demons squared away, whatever it may be. Wherever it may be, y'all. Like, Brian Ortega is a vicious jiu-jitsu practitioner. He's trained by one of the best in the world, but he needs to get his hands right. He needs to get his punches and kicks. He needs to work on those combinations to set up that jiu-jitsu game. It's a lot that he needs to evolve, for real. Josh said Johnny Walker just seems like a soppy striker who throws big kicks and punches and knees, gasses out, and is terrible on the ground. Krylov exposed his ground game, so he has improved all around. Hey, real talk. I agree with that. Krylov, I'm looking forward to his next fight because he was impressive. But once again, I have to give him partial, how you put it, partial adulations because of who he fought. Like Johnny Walker, I wasn't looking for Johnny Walker to do anything except go in there with his little colorful hair and either give us improvement or fail poorly. And he failed poorly. Somehow, some way, it may be the school he was in right now. Whoever's teaching him or whatever, he's not evolving. So he looked worse than he did when he got closed out by Corey Anderson. Johnny Walker just seemed laughable now when you mention him in the same conversation as John Jones. Yeah, at one point in time, man, wouldn't you understand that Johnny Walker was in the same conversation as facing John Jones potentially, like Dominique Reyes? Look, Johnny Walker was the Dominique Reyes before Dominique Reyes. The only thing about it is Dominique Reyes, he did what he had to do to make it up to that point. He's 12-0, and he made it to the big stage. Johnny Walker, he was on that move. Like the jetpacks was firing up. The hype was there. People was like, oh shit, Johnny Walker, he's the one. And it all went downhill when he did that post-fight celebration and he fucked up his shoulder. It looked goofy. And people started looking at him like, is this guy a clown? I mean, he can fight, but what's going on with him? And then he came back, he lost. I mean, his title hunt with John Jones was a wrap. Like his title with John Jones was a wrap by then. Like he didn't look impressive, even in the win that he injured his shoulder post-fight. He didn't look impressive. Man. But that's a damn good point, man. Johnny Walker, it does seem comedic to think at one point in time he was in the title conversation to face John Bones Jones. That's just laughable any way you look at it. The way he's looked his last couple of fights, taking those L's, I'm like, what? This dude, it was Dominique Reyes before Dominique Reyes was even in the conversation. Real talk. Like Anthony Smith, you can't put him in there because he's a different dude. He was in the UFC before, left, came back. You know, shout out, respect to Anthony Smith for, you know, defending off that home intruder. But I would have loaded his ass for real. I would have put so much goddamn hot shit in that dude. Look, for Anthony Smith to go up there and say, you know what, I'm a professional fighter, I have to say it was kind of like, it wasn't a good decision. Like, why would you go over there and fight a guy that's in your home and he's screaming at you when you got a family up in there? And the dude even pretended like it was a second person in the home. After warnings telling him to leave and he didn't go, the rest, it ain't no more talking. It ain't no more talking. Johnny Walker sums up the word hype job. I love when Corey Anderson started dancing in front of him after destroying him. Walker got a bit cocky. He did, man. And you know, Corey Anderson, a lot of people confuse him with Derek Brunson. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people confuse Corey Anderson with Derek Brunson, man. I was talking to a casual MMA fan, and they was trying to convince me that Corey Anderson was Derek Brunson. I say, no, he's not the one who was knocked out by Jacare Sosa twice. It's not Corey Anderson, yo. I mean, come on, be better, man. That's not the same person. Those two are not the same people. Stop comparing, you know, Derek Brunson to Corey Anderson. They're getting knocked out all the time. Corey Anderson, he's trying to stay solid. I like his evolving. You know, he's in the gym working hard. You can tell his game is improving. He's smoothing out the rough edges, man. I got to give him his props. Perky say, you think UFC can do similar events the way the WWE is doing them at their performance center? And the answer to that is absolutely not. The reason why is because these fighters need to be paid for a training camp. Now, the performance center, the OG, Vince McMahon, the McMahon family, Shane, Stephanie, and all them, look, as a level to choreography by its real life contact. So the reason why they're able to get away with what they're doing is because they don't need to go searching for fighters in all these locations. Those wrestlers are on the road all year round. Mixed martial artists, they're not on the road all year round. Let's be clear. World Wrestling Entertainment, they tour. They tour. They go on a tour. They have transportation. They're on the road all the freaking time. And what they do is choreograph. Some of the same shit happens all the time, does it not? Slams, drop kicks, off the ropes, certain moves according to what wrestler you are, right? The UFC isn't. choreographed. It's real life combat. So these fighters, if they out of a fight, they go back home, they go back to wherever they came from. Dana White has to basically corral these individuals, and they have to go through certain drug testing, much more strenuous than that of World Wrestling Entertainment, because these individuals are competing in a regulated sport. They're competing in a regulated sport. So therefore, there's a lot more restrictions that's compiled for them to meet, that Dana White has to go through, that he would never be able to just say, you know what, let me go to a training center. If that was the case, they would have went to an octagon in a UFC training center. But the UFC training center falls under state regulations of gathering or whatever. But you look at the World Wrestling Entertainment, all they have to do is just have a couple of people out there. The fighters know what they need to do to put on a show. They're putting on a show for the public. World Wrestling Entertainment is putting on a show. Mixed martial arts, UFC, Bellator, PFL, any of those they're not putting on a show. These fighters coming in there to entertain, but they're coming in there to fight. It ain't no choreographed throw off the cage and let's do a Superman punch. Nah. That shit that freaking Anthony Pettis did to Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. No, this ain't choreographed. The shit he was able to do is real life. That's why you saw Wonderboy get stopped for the first time. That shit's real life. Appreciate the question though, man. There ain't no way that Dana White, of all the facilities that they have, if it was that simple to go to a performance center, you have to understand the lack. Well, how you put it? Vince McMahon are on the different guidelines because they're entertaining and they don't need a whole lot of people in the arena at the same time. Trainers in the corner. Just think about that. They don't need trainers in the corner for these wrestlers. Two wrestlers come out. If it's a one-on-one bout, they come out to the ring. They don't need anybody in the corner for cuts, to give them water. They just come in there for a bout. They do what they have to do, finish it, and go back. That's the separation from choreography to real life combat. Appreciate the question though, bro. Good shit. Josh said, I think the Vegas have banned sporting events. That's why the UFC couldn't use their performance center, and we're trying to get an arena in the tribal lands. I mean, that's fact. Everybody know that Vegas was. What does Vegas fall up under? I mean, they fall up under the state regulations, man, the regional regulations. That's why they might have had a performance center out there, but they fall up under different guidelines. Dana White, in order for him to operate a fight card, it's no way for him to meet the limits of the gathering, the numbers. If you're saying it's 10 people, Dana White is operating differently. He needs more people there. You got to have the fighters come in with the corner. I mean, that's going to ramp up the numbers quick. You have 101, and then you have the corners, which is usually 2 to 3. So you're sitting at 8 people right there, and then you have the commentary, 2 people or whatever. That's 10. Then you have the camera people and all that other shit. That's easy to go past 10. Easy. Juan Blachowicz knocked out, was crazy on Corey. Has some insane power. If he thought Jones, I think Jones would run circles around him, just kick and jab. Jones is too fast for one. And Corey fought the wrong fight against Blachowicz. But look, you got to keep an eye out for Blachowicz. You have to. You have to keep an eye out for him. Real talk. Corey fought the wrong fight with him, man. You're right. That makes sense. Josh said, imagine all the money Vegas is losing right now for sporting events to gambling. It's probably insane. And you look at, when the lights was up and running with Vegas, man, you couldn't tell it nothing. You know how much money people spend in there? I mean, they ain't doing too bad. They losing money, but they ain't doing too bad. Because you look at what they are able to make with big boxing events and all that, and all the other collective concerts, and the food prices and the water prices, the room prices, bruh. They losing a lot of money, but god damn it, they made a lot of money in February when Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder fought. They made a whole hell of a lot of money with all the other fights that was in Vegas previously. Them people are doing just fine. They losing a hell of a lot of money, like you said, but I don't think it's putting a dent in the overall freaking account. I think the numbers are just fine. If the UFC held an event, there would be at least 100 people in the room. Well, Dana White said when it was 50, he was good. But when it went to 10, there's no way that he can handle that. Because a fighter has to have certain cut man trainer in his corner. So like I said, that's going to equal 8 right there. If you put 3 in each corner, that's 8. That's 4 and 4 each side. And then you look at the commentary, that's freaking 10 if they have 2 people. And then Dana White, of course, going to be around. That's 11. The cameraman. And then you have to have the EMT on deck. You have to have an EMT in the building. It's regular, is rules, it's mandatory. You have to have an EMT there. So that puts you about 12, 13. You know what I'm saying? There's no way Dana White can operate off 10. That's why he was trying to find another loophole, man. You think Dana is being unrealistic saying the UFC is going to get things going before all the other major sports do? Look, that's a good question, Perky, but I'm going to tell you like this. He can say what he wants, but his fighters still have to be ready. If everything is shut down and you say, Tom, the bans are lifted slightly, right? You're going to say, well, we're going to be the first. Okay, that's good food for thought. That's good little sprinkles of seasoning to prepare for when this projection is, because we don't have a clue when this shit going to lift, right? He can say what he wants. But if you think for 1 second that boxing isn't going to be back on the scene, you got another thing coming. Boxing is going to be back on the scene just as quick as the UFC. That's absolutely 100% facts. I know he's trying to go to the forefront, but listen, he ain't in front of boxing. Boxing, the promoters and everybody else, they out here grinding too. They out here making decisions. They having table talks. They trying to get some freaking intel on when this potential COVID-19, the regional restrictions will be lifted and the global restrictions. Hell yeah, they watching that shit too. So he can say what he want, man. That don't mean it's true. Not in that particular instance where he's talking about being the first. His fighters still have to be trained and ready to go in there and fight. Nobody's going to go in there and take an L, realistically, just to say, okay, I want to go in there. Just like Aljamain Sterling was saying, you want to be scapegoat, so you want to go in there for last minute. You have to be very smart about going in there out of shape against an opponent, and you end up taking an L and you might not get a title shot anytime soon. If the UFC gets the island, I believe there will be a card at the end of next month. That's my prediction. Hey, we'll see what's up. Perky, I believe Dana when he said the most sports have hundreds of people in a team, and if the UFC gets the island, there'll probably be fights next month. That's the only way that the UFC is gonna have any type of fights is that he has some inside scoop, which nobody has been able to basically bottleneck and come up with information that says, you know what, I can make this decision in confidence that the ban is going to be lifted this time. No one can say that right now. So Dana White can lock on the island all he wants. But if you have the higher powers to be ESPN and Disney influencing you, no, don't put on the card. It ain't just for now. It's basically saying, wait before you do this. Wait. You know what I'm saying? Wait. It ain't shit Dana White can do, y'all. I'm gonna be honest. It ain't shit he can do right now. That's real. It ain't shit he can do. If those big dogs told him, hey, you need to chill, with going on the reservation to throw this, and Dana White was shut down, it was out of his control. Don't expect him to put on a fight next month if the numbers ain't right across the board and this virus haven't subsided and it's safe enough for these politicians to go out here and say, you know what, we're lifting the bans. We're going to we're going to lift the stay-at-home policy, and we're going to allow individuals to start operating with normality as it was before. We have to have the numbers right. I like the idea when Dana said in the interview earlier, when he gets this island, he would let the fighters go to the island and train for the fights. That would be go away from the coronavirus stuff. Once again, Josh, him letting the fighters go to the island and train without an ETA on this virus being lifted away from their family, being on the Indian reservation, you ain't goddamn going out there jacking off. You ain't going out just kicking rocks. Like, once again, Dana White can say what he want to say, but you're taking the fighters and putting them on deployment, and you're basically saying, go here and train, but we don't have a fight date. That's unrealistic, especially somebody's in Dana's position. It's very unrealistic for him to say, you can go train on the island, but I can't tell you when we're going to have the next card. I can't tell you because I don't know myself. It sounds good, but man, you can't screw around and bring fighters up there and they're restricted to that island and they're not even to come and go as they please. Look, if you leave the reservation, man, then you fall up under state guidelines. You have to stay up on the reservation. And we know how hard-headed it's been over here in the U.S. with people following guidelines. Do any of you guys know where this island or islands are located? It's supposed to be in California somewhere, next to the Sequoia, Tacky Palace Casinos. I was hyped for 249, but it was a disaster with the pandemic. Khabib pulling out with the stuff and Rose when Dana and the UFC had to make a new card, then try to get a location for this fight. It was bound to happen, man. It was bound to happen. Seriously, it was bound to happen, y'all. It was all good just a week ago. It was all good just a week ago. Look, it was all good just a month ago. Well, a month and a half ago. You know what I'm saying? This shit is serious. I seen somewhere the company that the UFC is owned by one of their clients, that this company manages his private island, and this person who had the island wanted to help Dana and the UFC. If that is in fact true, why not? But like I said before, being around areas that are largely populated with Indian reservations operating under different rules. So when Dana White, being in the position he's been in and has never put on a card in these particular locations before, for him to exhaust all measures and seek out native land, I'm telling you, people took offense to that shit. He's saying, bruh, we're in a pandemic. You need to fall back. You need to chill. And he wasn't listening. You don't think people was calling up the UFC? You don't think people was reaching out and saying, man, why don't you just call this shit off? Bob Arum even saying it's asinine for him to still be trying to put on the card. Bob Arum, the OG of boxing. You know what I'm saying? So when it comes down to Dana White being shut down at the last minute, just outside of a week, until he's supposed to put on that card. Did you not think it was going to happen? Yeah, it was going to happen, because now you're sourcing out precious, sacred land of the reservation to put on a fight card. And you're saying it's not about money, but yet and still it's about something. People are looking at it, you being selfish. You're not paying respect to the ones who lost their lives. I know you don't care about the virus, but people right now are in desperate times. So they're saying like Dana White still trying to put on his card, which is, it would have been legendary if the card goes off and do great numbers for him to pull it off. But like I said earlier, when you seek out sacred native lands in a time like this for your own being, for the UFC, people are going to look at you as being selfish. And that's exactly what happened in a sense, because they're saying like, hey, if you're not doing it for the money, why are you so in a hurry to do it just because you want to prove a point to the general public? Why are you such in a hurry to do this shit? You can wait like everybody else until this is up, and then we'll be able to see you lock the cage. Until then, what's so big about it? What's so big about it? You need to relax. Khabib and Tony curse 6 times is a charm. I don't know about the number 6 being a charm, man. You know, I don't know about that. I'm not trying to put no ominous freaking, ominous aura, of vibes up there. But 6, that's even worse. Does this mean Khabib and Tony will be back in the future now in 249? You know what, to be honest, anything's possible with those 2 names. We have to see. It's a good thing. And look, what's positive about Justin Gaethje and Tony Ferguson being canceled is that when this is all lifted, Dana White can say, whoo, like do his Ric Flair and say, you know what? We're going to plan this again. Justin Gaethje is off the slab right now. We're going to plan this again. You know what I'm saying? Like we're going to see this. We're going to see this potentially planned again, no doubt, because it's nothing to rush it anymore. So Khabib Nurmagomedov and Tony Ferguson will probably get planned again later this year, and potentially on a stacked card. Potentially on a stacked card, just so they can make up for lost time, just so they can bring people to the seats. You know what I'm saying? Once the bans are lifted, I'm not sure if they're going to say, well, 50, 100. They might ease into it. I don't think they're just going to pop the collar on the damn restrictions. You know what I'm saying? And just say, okay, cool. We can go back to normal. I think they're going to ease into the numbers. And that's when Dana White's going to make that heavy card. And it's going to be lit. And he's going to start promoting it. And we'll probably potentially see Khabib and Ferg back in there again. But you can rest assured that Justin Gaethje is going to have to wait his turn now. I know he's like, damn, I was so close. But my people, appreciate you for stopping in. I have to really, get the stove hot for my son. I wanted to get on here and talk briefly. But yeah, I might be back on later on. That I can say. I might be back on later on. But I definitely have to break and fire up the stove for my son, get him right. And I might be back on here later on. But for those of you that tuned in, Josh Talks UFC, Perky, Sir Ken, Grosso, all of you that tuned in, I appreciate it. Salute to you. As always, thank you for your support. And be sure to turn up and tune in to World Combat Sports. Y'all be safe out there.